because it's less of a burden on the environment or X, Y, Z. And I think people will naturally drift to that, but I don't think it's something that we can do individually. I think it's something that has to be done in the context of a group of people. Personally, I'm very lucky because I'm from a small village anyway. So in my context, I think of restoring the village to what it was when I first encountered it when I was 12 years old. And I think that people should look at such movements with this viewpoint in mind, that not just me having a homestead, but how can I convince 50 people to move into a certain area with specific skill sets and, generate. Maybe if I'm a researcher from a university, I can bring another 5 with me and open up a lab there that would give work to further people, and because, you would need to have a secretary or a school teacher or maybe a doctor present or somebody to milk your cows or whatever. The thing is to start getting people actively involved in the day-to-day affairs of life as opposed to relying on other people to do them for you. Because when you rely on other people to do things for you, then you surrender a part of your own liberty and sovereignty. There's the Greek word for tradition is paradosi. Now, tradition, people don't really understand it so much, but what it means is you trade things. So if I have something today, then I'll pass it on to the next generation, and when they have it, they own it. For example, I grew up dancing to Greek folk music, and before my time, it was played on a reed instrument called the zurnas, and in my time, they played it on clarinets because they sound better, and there's really no reason to maintain the zurnas, and yet the songs were passed down, the tradition was maintained. But that's only one aspect of it. The Greek word paradosi also means surrender. So in transferring your tradition, you're also surrendering it. And if you lose your tradition and accept someone else's, you're surrendering your own way of life to somebody else in adopting that. And what we have done is we have surrendered core values of our way of life, which was the independence that made the middle class strong all over the West, in exchange for comfort. It's very sneaky. I've worked in fields. It's no pleasure. And certainly seeking the easiest way to do it is a very, very strong carrot to swallow. But you have to be careful of the stick. And if that stick is that somebody can cut off my food supply at will, then that's an issue.
Thank you very much. That was an amazing answer. I'm really happy. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kostas. We have one more question. Do you have time for one more question before we close?
I'll take one more question.
Thank you. Plain?
Well, like so many others here, they're kind of involved questions. I was going to ask if there are any authors or books you recommend other than Plato.
C. Wright Mills was an incredible sociologist who was killed in a motorcycle accident in the U.S. in the 50s. I would recommend his work. I think it's remarkable, and just pretty much what's out there in the classical bibliography. I'm not a particular scholar or erudite person who said, you have to read this book or that book. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Okay, and then one real last question, which would be, in your free ebook, you refer to DNA and the Greek word for evolution being from the helix.
Yes.
And so, do you have any thoughts on the idea that what passes for current civilization is actually a post-disaster civilization? And a related question would be, do you think that DNA is kind of a godlike molecule that explains different, psychic kind of phenomena?
Boy, that's a complicated question. Let me start with the first one. Do I think that there was a civilization previous to known historic civilization? I believe that's what you're asking me.
Yes.
There seems to be circumstantial evidence for that with the Atlantis myth and again, very circumstantial evidence that is found around the world that seems to indicate that there was a pyramid, a global pyramid building culture, whatever that might mean. But from my standpoint as a Greek, I have another question, or a similar question, because if you read the Atlantis mythos, which again was written by Greeks, so of course it's Hellenocentric, and supposedly the Greeks were instrumental in destroying Atlantean civilization because it had become corrupt. Now, one thing that you notice about ancient Greek civilization that always got me, always raised questions for me is the following. Why didn't they form large unified areas, call it a country? I mean, okay, we're not very pleasant as a culture and as people, us Greeks. I mean, we like to argue and fight with each other all the time. There's a joke of God inspecting hell and going to German hell, and hell, of course, is this large lake that's full of excrement, and all the sinners are underneath. And of course, German hell is run very efficiently, and Italian hell is run a little less so, but is still operational. And the Greek hell, when he goes in, he sees the demon off in the corner with a Walkman on reading a magazine. So he runs over and accosts him and says, "Where have all the sinners gone?" And the demon says, "Oh, don't worry, they're all in the pool." So the Almighty asks the question. He says, "How is it? Are the Greeks so disciplined?" And he says, "No, they're the worst race on the planet. But whenever one tries to escape, all the others grab him by the legs and pull him back down." So we are still very much like that. It was the propensity for chaos in ancient Greece and the strife between the families and societies that actually was the impetus for the birth of philosophy in these lands and the very noble achievements that the classical Greeks made. But irregardless of that, I always had one question. Why didn't they form countries? I mean, why wasn't there a large Peloponnese, under some kind of civic authority? Why was Alexander the Great the first that united Greece by the sword and not willingly, And then I have to ask a question. Was it because they remembered something from way back when? Was it that maybe this globalized culture that held sway whenever it did left such a dark shadow that its memory caused these people who for some reason remembered it not to want to associate, not to want to surrender power beyond the neighborhood? Because if you look at how close some of these city-states were and still are, your first instinctive response is, you got to be kidding me. I mean, why can't people who live 30 miles away form one country, but instead, start fighting with each other? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense logistically, because war always costs more, and yet they did. They had individual city-states, and they were very unwilling to surrender authority. Was it because, and again, this is pure speculation on my part, they remembered something that left such a bad taste in their mouths that they didn't want to go through it again? I don't know.
Maybe that was their DNA.
Maybe it's something in DNA. Personally, having been involved with the computer industry over the last 10 years, I believe that DNA is capable of programming, of retaining memory, and in fact that perhaps our mass subconscious is programmed into the DNA on a physical level that we can't understand at this point in time. And Yeah, when you look at what a program is, it needs a physical medium to store it, or it needs some kind of standing wave. It also needs, if you look at what a computer is, you have electrical energy coming in, powering it, you have a medium for storing the files and the operating system, and then you have an interface where we're looking at it, but you always need a physical medium on which the software is going to operate. So maybe our DNA is like that. Maybe there's something in there that they were aware of. I mean, I found because Greek is a very mathematical language, or was, ancient Greek most certainly is, why would they call it from the helix and not something else? I mean, it's just, for me, it's astounding.
Well, I was impressed too.
Yeah, I don't have an answer, but those are my opinions on the questions that you raised.
Well, thanks very much for your thoughtful responses.
My pleasure.
We have just spoken with Kostas Danaos at blog.pammachon.gr, Pammachon. Thank you for your time tonight, Kostas. The Greek philosopher Herodotus said, "The only good is knowledge, and the only evil is ignorance." You have tried for many years to bring the ancient knowledge of Nikung to the West, not only for personal gain, but predominantly to help change the path of humanity. Herodotus also said, "Circumstances rule men, men do not rule circumstances." And though you may not have changed humanity, you believe, you have changed a few people, and for that, kudos to you, sir. On behalf of Fox and all the members of the WebBot Forum, thank you. In our tradition, may you and your family have many pies to come.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate your giving me a chance to voice some of my opinions. And thank you very much, everyone, for your questions, and I'm touched.
Thank you, Costa, especially for your clear and steady thinking. I've been very appreciative of it.
Be well.
Thank you, Costa. Yeah, we really appreciate the time you've spent with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Costa. I'll think of you when we eat the apples from our orchard and I'm spinning our wool. Thank you.
Thank you. You helped me understand what's going on in Greece.
I don't understand what's going on in Greece, so I don't know.
Thank you very much.
Be well, folks. Bye-bye.